What's up, Scott here from Chernobyl Studios. Today we're going to be looking at 5 different Marshall amp simulators that are on the market that you can, use for metal. And a lot of these are going to be some of my first choices for going for metal when I'm looking at the Marshall amp sim line. I don't really want to call this the top 5 Marshall amp sims for metal, but let's just go like these are my top 5 that I will typically think of first when I'm trying to come up with some Marshall tones, or I want to work with Marshall when I'm thinking about metal. So let's jump into the session and have a look. So as usual, I have a small demo, and we're going to look at every one of the different amp simulators. And the amp simulators that I am using are going to be the Neural DSP Nameless, the Nembrini Audio MRH810, the Softube Kerry King, the Mercurial Spark, and the Audiority VS8100. These are not really in order from like 1 to 5 in what I think are best. They're just, that's the way it just kind of worked out like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the clip. Actually, let's just go through this one at a time. I think that makes more sense. So this is the Fortin Nameless. It really needs no introduction. Now, when this plugin first came out, I wasn't that huge of a fan because I didn't like the grind pedal. I didn't like how much attack and how glassy my guitar sounded with it. So I really didn't use the Nameless that much. That was until they updated it to include this hex drive, which is more of just, it's just their version of a tube screamer, right? And I like this one a lot more. And so I never use the grind pedal, personally speaking. I'm always using the hex drive. Now, the Nameless, I mean, it's going to be pretty popular. You probably should know this. I use it a lot. Okay, I do. And it's often one of those plugins that can do more than meets the eye, right? And the reason why this plugin is so popular, it's built on the Fortin mod, otherwise known as the Meshuggah amp, right? So it's modded to hell and back, scooped, tons of gain, because the JCM 800 itself is a really low gain amplifier. And so if you just try to take a JCM 800 and throw a tube screamer on there, for modern metal anyway, you're still going to be like, where's the gain? There's not enough gain here. But the Fortin Nameless here is, you can't go wrong with this one. This is pretty much a standard, a classic right now. But I think you will be pretty surprised to hear how the other amps sounds are changed. Now, all I did here was I did very simple EQ. So I'll just kind of zoom in and we can have a listen, and I'll enable and disable the EQ. It's going to be very minimal. So the EQ is just very, just the last little bit of tone sculpting here, cutting the highs down a little bit. This was a whistly honk, no idea what that was. And then doing a dynamic EQ in here to kind of tame down the lower mids and the mids when I'm doing the palm mutes. All of these were recorded in E, half step down from E standard, so E flat. So we're not just by the nature of the string and the gauge and the tuning, we're not going to run into a lot of the huge flubby flub with palm mutes that you're going to get when you start getting into the lower tunings, just in case you were wondering. And then I just used the guitars bus here, which is basically an L1. I do not have the Chug Slayer engaged, and that's all I did. And so if you can use your ears, for example, you follow the guitar tone mastery process that I've laid out, you can use this plugin and just the inbuilt IRs with the inbuilt mic placements and all that stuff, you can get a really nice sound. So yeah, the Nameless, pretty sweet, pretty good. Let's go to the next one here. We're going to go to the Nembrini Audio MRH 810. So you can already hear a big difference. This one seems to be, I don't want to say warmer, but the sound is rounder. And we seem to have more of a crackling, or the distortion's really starting to be overdriven, even from the amp itself. You can hear that when I do these arpeggiated chords. So there's not as much definition as, for example, if we go to the Nameless. So there's definitely a lot more gain with the Nameless, but the tonal character of the Nembrini Audio MRH 810 is really, really nice. Now, it's even though I'm taking a lot of mids out, what it would appear in here, there are still more mids in here than are in the Nameless, with the mids knob higher, because the mod with the Nameless, they're doing a lot of scooping on that one. So you're gonna overall just straight away have a different sound, but it still sounds like a Marshall, right? It has that classic Marshall sound. It's just a different kind of timbre, I guess you could say. So let's look at the EQ I did here. Oh, and by the way, I'm using the Nembrini Audio 808. I just thought it made sense to kind of use the same chain there. So let's look at the EQ. It's pretty much the same to some degree. So it's the same deal, and this cut here seems to be, I don't know, maybe just something peculiar to Marshall. There seems to be just some sort of noisy, crackly, grady sound that I'm just not a fan of here. So I just take a little bit out here and it subdues it just a tiny little bit. And then again, just the guitar plugin from JST, the Joel Wanasek bus glue. Yeah, so that's the MRH 810. Now, let's move on to the Kerry King. I think you're going to be quite surprised with this one. Let's load it up and have a look. Yeah, this one's way different. And I have to be honest, I'm still getting used to how this one functions, because this one just has all of the attack. It's the most Marshall sounding of all the mods, between the Nameless and this one. Because if we take off the Beast, for example, like this is enabled, I click this button and you see the red button come on. We see that it's enabled. I'm going to turn off my tube screamer here for a second. This is basically a Marshall. Very low gain amp, right? But we turn the Beast on, which is the Kerry King modifications to his amp. So definitely a lot more gain, a lot more balls. However, I just wanted a bit more definition with this. So I actually threw a tube screamer on here, but I took the tone knob all the way down so I didn't get like the glassy effect. Because if I crank it up, I'm getting just that extra tiny little bit of edge on the palm mutes and a little extra clarity and just a tad more oomph, you know, because it's so low gain sounding, even though it sounds very brutal with a lot of attack, very, you know, sharp in your face. I still wanted to get some more flubby flub, some more body into my palm mutes. So I'm still really getting used to this one. This is the newest addition to my collection, and I was quite like, oh, okay. You know, when I grabbed this one, because I wasn't used to really working with this type of a sound. And I'm using just one of the cabs set up here from Terry Date. Really can't go wrong with Terry Date. I'm just using the setup number 1, which seems to, this is the one thing I think I would say I don't like about this plugin. Even when you enlarge it, you can see it just gets all blurry. So whatever. But mics are the 53.3, and then like, I don't know what that means. This is the M88. This is, I guess this is the 3rd and 4th position. Okay. So, I mean, this plugin's kind of cool because you tend to go back to using your ears a bit more because you can't really see what is what. Not the worst thing in the world. But we bring this on over, and the cool thing about the Marshalls in general is that there's not a lot of knobs. I mean, you got your bass, middle, and treble, your preamp, your presence, and that's kind of it. So it's really, you know, a great way to get started dialing in amp sims and stuff like that. But this one is the most unique out of all of them. However, still has that classic Marshall sound. So even we press play on this, so you still have the Marshall sound. There's what's happening here is we're finding that each Marshall amp on the market so far has the Marshall sound. It's a Marshall. It's just some of it has been accentuated in a different way. And which one do you need? I have no idea. What kind of music are you working on? What do you want to do? You know, like the Kerry King one, clearly going to be great for fast palm muting. The attack on that is outrageous. You know, is it going to be great for low tune guitars? I don't know. I did this through an E flat tuning. I haven't tried any other tunings through this yet. Who knows? Maybe I'll do another video in the future. I mean, you guys let me know. Would you like to see a dedicated Kerry King video? I got drop B back there. I've got standard D. You know, let me know what you guys think in the comments. All right. Now, we're going to go to one of my favorites here. This is kind of a secret weapon because a lot of people, for some reason, kind of forget about this one. But this is the Mercurial Spark. Now, let's have a listen. Sorry, before we do that, let's look at the EQ I did. I forgot. So the major EQ here is just taming the high end again, bringing down all this presency type stuff and just kind of smoothing it out a little bit to make it not so harsh. Yeah, that's it. And then the same thing, the Joel Wanasek Delia Bob here. Okay, now on to the Mercurial. Now this one's very similar to the Nembrini audio one that we just listened to, because we can hear this one. This is the AFD version of it. And we can hear how this one is breaking up again way more often when we do the palm mute stuff. We can hear it just starting to crackle. We're just getting it's like just at the edge now. We're like, wow, we're getting really distorted here. Sounds really dirty. Yeah, it's just like there's still the low end is still loose here, which is a characteristic of the Marshall, right? And so here with the Mercurial, not only do you have the AFD, you do also have the 800 in here and stuff like that. And everything here is bundled as, you know, the plugins. So I'm using their TSC, their tube screamer, so that's in here as well. And all I did was just set the microphones to where I like them and then dial the settings, and that's that. But I really do like the Mercurial Spark. It's probably one of the most, let's call it, it's true to the Marshall sound. It's very clear that this is a Marshall. All of these are obviously Marshalls, and a good ear will be able to tell that, okay, these are all Marshalls. But of all of the ones that we've looked at, maybe the Nembrini audio as well, this is just a straight up full-on Marshall amp, and that's that. And the EQ is very much the same. So we're just taming the highs a little bit. So yeah, I love this. This is a great amp. One of my favorites. Now, let's get to, how can I say this? The underdog amp. The amp that people don't understand how to use, but is an amazing amp. Okay, the amp I'm talking about is the Audiority Solidus VS8100, the valve state. All right, let's have a listen. Oh, yeah. So I love this amp because it sounds so dirty. I mean, it gets a bad rap. Yes, it's a solid state amp, and what you can say whatever you want about it. But it has such a unique quality to be sharp, aggressive, and it can be dirty and it can break up, and it's pleasing in a way, right? It's very interesting because sometimes you don't want such a clean, pristine, just bring, sound. You want to be dirty. And this is one of my favorite amps to use to blend into a different amp because, I mean, you can just set the dials however you want. It's going to be aggressive, different, and grindy sounding, and you can just blend that into another guitar sound, and it's awesome. The main thing to keep in mind when you're using the Audiority is you do have to boost the hell out of it, and the trick is going to be working with the parameters so that you have a tight, controlled low end, because if we listen to this, you see how it's breaking up there. To a degree, that's cool, but you don't want to get it to the point where, it's pretty silly sounding. So that's going to be like what you're going to try to be working on. So it's not breaking up. So you have a clear, defined note. So you're going to get in here. You have to do a bunch of EQ shaping before the amp, right, which is classic. You can do a bunch of distortion. You can drive the amp. And once you get to the amp, you can mess with the main knob here to watch out for is the contour knob. So that's the main coloring knob of the amp. and it's extreme, and that's why I love this thing. And people love it or they hate it, but it's just one of the amps that I love to use when I'm working on metal tones. So you'll notice that all of these amps that I've used here, I used what came with the amp. I didn't use any third-party IRs or do really any third-party anything. Just what the amp comes with, that's what we have. And so for the Kerry King, I just used a free Tube Screamer add-on because I wanted to have it a bit tighter. The VS8100, everything within the plugin, it's all there. And then we have the EQ. Which seems to be a common theme here. We're going to just clean up the low end a little bit and bring down the highs, not make it so harsh, make them a bit softer and rounder. Nothing happening on my sub mix if you're looking here. All I have on the master is ozone, and I'm only running a limiter with just rolling off the sub lows there, and that's it. So just wanted to prove that, you know, I'm not doing any studio magic or anything like that to make these sound better than they are, okay? And because I know people ask often, the bass that I'm using here, I am using the Solemn Tones Loki Bass 2 with Loki Glass 1. I freaking love this bass. I pretty much use it for everything now. And for drums, I am using Easy Drummer 2, the Modern Metal EZX, and I'm using the Driven preset. And then doing lots and lots of drum programming and velocity editing, all that stuff, which I talk about in my Metal Drum Programming Mastery course. Still at sale price, by the way, but it's only for like 2 or 3 more days. It's not going to last much longer. So if you want to learn how to program MIDI like I do and make it sound good, that might be something you want to check out. So which of these 5 amps that I have loaded here would be the best? I can't answer that question. I know that if I want to do black metal, it's going to be, I'm going to try the Spark first. And if I want something just more shitty sounding, to be honest, but not like in a bad way, I want it to break up more. I want it to be more cult sounding. I might go with the MRH810 because it has a built-in reverb tank. Love the way this sounds. If I want to do low string or low tune, tight metal genty gent, it's going to be the Nameless, okay? If I want to come up with an absolutely gnarly, disgusting guitar tone that I can use to blend in to something else, that is the Solidus. The Kerry King, I haven't used on a production yet. I haven't used this with a client. I'm still kind of on the fence about it. I really don't know how I feel about it. It sounds cool. I just haven't played with it enough. So these are 5 Marshall amp simulators that I often am thinking about or reaching to when I want to work with a client who has specifically asked for a Marshall sound, or I would like to have a Marshall sound. I know there are more on the market. Please let me know in the comments below which Marshall amp sim would you like me to have a look at. If I can grab it, if I can get it, I would be happy to do a video about it. So I'm going to go ahead and let these all play through again. So, and then there'll be timestamps so you can go back and forth and just kind of compare how they all sound. Okay, so let's go. Let's go back and let's get started. All right, that'll do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed having a look at 5 different Marshall amp sims for metal. Which one did you like best? Which one do you think you would use? Maybe, how about this one? In the comments below, you tell me of those 5 that we looked at, how would you order them? How would you rank them? I'd be very curious to see what your answers were. All right, thanks for watching the video, guys. I will see you in the next video. Have a good one.